All right, we'll get started here. My name is Joe Rydell. I'm the new district manager here for the Northwest District. I want to start out, I want to welcome all of you for signing in tonight to learn a little bit about what we have going on here in Northwest District. A little bit of housekeeping. Like we've done in the past, we're going to use that question and answer button down towards the bottom. As we go through the presentation, if anything comes up, any questions, feel free to just go ahead and type that into the chat there. We have Jordan Catt kind of behind the scenes to help compile that, and he's going to moderate a question and answer session at the very end. Where in the past we've answered them after little breaks in the sessions. This year we're going to go ahead and answer all those at the end. We have a little short presentation for you tonight. It's not as long as we've had in the past. Kind of tell you a little bit the activities and stuff we have going on here in the district. To start off with, Northwest District, we did some restructuring this past year. We broke our state up, fisheries management up from 4 districts to 5 districts. And in that process, we actually gained a couple counties. We did lose Dual County here in the Panhandle, but we gained Brown County and Blaine County up on our eastern boundary. With that merger, change and restructuring, we did gain the majority of the Sandhill Lakes are now all within the Northwest District. There are a few of them still in that eastern fringe that remain in the Northeast District. Several more popular water bodies within the Northwest District, a lot of our irrigation reservoirs. There's some of our bigger water bodies, which we expect to get more use. One thing unique about the aquatic resources we have here in Northwest is our abundance of cold water streams and trout streams. We have a lot of public access both in the Pine Ridge area and down in the North Platte River Valley. Some of those tributaries down there produce some pretty good trout opportunities that are public access. And a lot of the resources that we manage do fall into that small pond and sand pit category. These are a lot of our urban waters or park ponds. This is a great time of year to get out and explore some of these areas, especially with a lot of our trout stockings going on right now that you've probably heard about in some of our other meetings if you've tuned in. One thing unique about a lot of our small ponds is that a lot of them are spring fed, which means that they can support those trout fisheries year round. Not necessarily just a spring and fall type opportunity. So if you're looking for those trout opportunities, we do have them year round in the Northwest District. When it comes to our staff for the Northwest District, as I mentioned earlier, my name is Joe Rydell. I'm the new district manager. I was the biologist here in Alliance. That position we're working on refilling, so we do have a vacancy within our district. Zach Brashears is our fish biologist out of our Valentine office. So we're kind of a small staff for a big area. Like I mentioned, we have the largest district, but we do have the least population for our district. Kind of makes it a fun area to work at times too. We do have a little support in our Northwest District. We do have a Valentine Fish Hatchery that they don't just produce fish for just the Northwest District, but do produce fish for a lot of the state. But as you can see here, these guys are always willing to help us out on the management side and hold a big fish for a pitcher once in a while. Derek is running the hatchery up there, and Logan is our fish culture supervisor. They've been on for a while now and have a lot of great expertise to raise fish for us. Colton Smith, he's been on here for a couple weeks now, but as you can tell, we've already got him out in the water and getting his hands on some fish. We also hire a couple technicians every year. These are usually with our aquatic invasive species program. You may see a few of these this summer at some of our boat ramps. Aquatic invasive species is a big concern for Northwest Nebraska, and we're going to try to get these temporaries out as much as we can. Keep an eye out for those invasive species. If you do encounter them at our boat ramps, we just ask that you give them the time of day to answer some questions, gather some information for us, and let them take a look at your boat. An extra set of eyes never hurts for stopping the spread of invasive species. If you tuned in yesterday, for a statewide meeting. You heard a little bit about our third aquatic habitat plan. We have several projects planned out here in Northwest Nebraska. I'm not going to hit on very many of these projects tonight because we kind of went into detail a little bit the other last night with our presentation. But I do want to highlight a couple of them that we have going on and kind of the status of these projects. The first one is our dam removal at Carter P. Johnson and renovation of Soldier Creek up on Fort Robinson. This dam was reclassified as a high hazard dam, and we were required to do some actions to bring this up to standard, or we were required to decommission this dam. We chose to go with the decommissioning and use this opportunity to do some work on Soldier Creek. This project's been kind of put on hold a few times. Our biggest challenge right now has to do with some legislative wording. We're waiting for the legislative bill 261 to go through this session, which would give us the authority to spend the money to work on this dam. We have leveraged, as Jackson mentioned yesterday, with some different grant opportunities and to help with some of the payments on this project. But with that project on hold, that gave us an opportunity to look at another water body within our district. We chose to go to Smith Lake WMA. This is the Smith Lake between Lakeside and Rushville and Highway 250. We surveyed last year with our polls and asked you guys where you want us to do our next access project, and the majority of you said you wanted to work on the Sandhill Lake. So that's one thing that pushed us towards looking at Smith Lake. Some of the issues we want to work on Smith Lake include angler access. As you can see from the perimeter of a lot of our Sandhill lakes have a vegetation barrier that don't allow bank access very well at all. You pretty much need a pair of waders, a float tube, or a boat in order to fish these water bodies. So we want to try to tackle some of that. Another issue with Smith Lake is it does have a small dam on it and outlet structure. And this, as you can see from this picture, this outlet structure is in really poor shape. We've had a lot of ice over the years corroding it, and we're going to really tackle that and try to fix those problems with this project. Cattails aren't always a bad thing. Where we don't have cattails, we do see some erosion. This is down along the highway. We have some bank erosion that has been eaten away. We've lost several trees over the years. It's getting into the playground area where that will probably be removed in this project. But we're going to be looking at some bank stabilization in some of these areas to protect what we have left for shoreline. This project's still pretty preliminary. Right now, we're about 30% design, but this is going to just go over a few of the concepts that we're looking at doing. I mentioned that outlet structure in the north part of the project there. And then each one of these sites is locations where we're going to be looking at doing some improvements in angler access. And we'll be deepening around these access structures in order to provide some vegetation-free areas that anglers can fish a little bit easier. This just kind of zoomed in area for around the boat ramp location. We're looking at doing a combination in this one of the majority of our structures are going to be riprap based, almost jetty type fishing piers. We'll kick out nodes that get you beyond that cattail barrier and then excavating around them. The shoreline area will be enforced with some rock that can help out with bluegill and largemouth bass spawning habitat. When we surveyed last year, we also asked you that question on which types of angler access structures do you like? And I was surprised to hear that 74% of you responded saying you like the riprap style versus the floating piers. So the majority of these structures are going to be a riprap style jetty, maybe not quite exactly the same as this one here that's at Walgren Lake, but something similar to it. But we are also going to try to incorporate something that's a little bit more ADA accessible, try to get some of the elderly or children that have trouble around these riprap type style, some better opportunities. This is an example that South Dakota uses, one that we're looking at, but our final design might not be exactly like that. A couple other access improvements projects that we're going to be working on this year. I've brought this project up here for the last few years, really hoping that we get going, but we've just hit several hurdles that have kind of set us back a little bit. But I promise you, this year we are working on Avocet and Fry. Both these lakes, we had a pre-construction meeting just this morning. These will actually get going here, probably starting construction even as early as next week. Look for a news release out on some of those areas. We will have some closures to the areas, but we'll try to maintain some fishing access to the area, to the Hyannis area, while we're working on these projects. You know, one struggle we have with sandhill lakes is our water fluctuations. This is the Fry Lake boat ramp area, both at high water on the right and low drought years on the left. You know, this might not fluctuate a lot within a year, but from year to year, it can fluctuate a lot. So trying to figure out what kind of boat ramp would work out good for these situations can be challenging. Here's our kind of our current layout, the Fry Lake boat ramp. We got a little pull around, small parking area. Our project for the site's looking at building almost a little peninsula going out that gets us out into that water for adequate depth and then gets our slope right. We're going to be doing some grading to build that parking lot up, working on drainage, so maybe we don't have quite the ruts and wet spots we've had in the past. We're going to put in this will be an ADA access point. We will have a service pier with this. It's not shown in the picture here, but we will have a service pier included in this, and then putting in a new proposed pit latrine, pit toilet. Looking at Avocet Lake, we're going to be looking at this far east access point right on the boundary here. Kind of a zoom in of this area. This is kind of a real wet, soft, mucky area at times during high water. You see the large amount of vegetation, the cattail ring on it. We're going to do a similar project to this as we're doing at Fry. This will be another peninsula going out, reinforced. Won't be quite as big of a project as what Fry is, but we're going to be doing a lot of hauling of fill from Fry Lake over to here. So this is the one we're going to start on to begin with. Trying to maintain that boat access throughout this project in the Hyannis area. So by the time this one's done, we'll start at Fry Lake, which will close down boating there, but have a brand new ramp to use here. The fair WMA, this is one that was originally included in this project, and you know, with the big concrete boat ramps going on at the other two lakes, we chose with this one here to do more of a primitive type access, but we want to do some improvements to it. This kind of shows what it looked like at high water, and the drawing on the left here shows our property boundaries. We don't really have a lot to work with on this location, so you know, putting in a big peninsula and fishing pier out here, or fishing big access spot here, doesn't really work real well. So maintaining this as maybe more of a primitive hand launch type location seemed like a better opportunity. When water did get down, we had enough room, you could back a trailer down. It was pretty soft and organic. And this is what we deal with trying to launch survey boats into here. We're stuck pretty good in this picture. That's as far as we get close to the water. So trying to do something a little bit more improvements for here. But we chose to do this one in-house, and we completed it this past summer. We worked with our wildlife staff and used some of their equipment, rented an excavator to do the work. But we replaced the cattle guards going in, put a little bit wider, bigger cattle guards for getting in, and we rocked the parking lot and the approach coming down into the water. You know, we're lucky enough with the drought. I'm not really saying lucky with drought, but we were able to have low water to work on this to get out a little bit. This spring, the water's come up a little bit. This is usable. It's pretty shallow out there, but like I mentioned, this is designed more for hand launch and not really a boat launch. It'll help us out, but you definitely won't get stuck driving back in there on this Palace Rock. It holds up pretty good. Another access project that we worked on this year is working with our staff up in the Ponderosa office on Gilbert Baker Pond. This little pier here was part of the the floating fishing pier from Carter P. Johnson. We were able to get it up there, and we hired a local contractor up there to help us get it put in place. It'll be a nice little addition to this pond. But we also have that contractor do a little bit extra work. We cleared off a little bit more of the timber around the bank, provide them a little bit of a shelf out there that anglers can get out to. We're hoping this will vegetate up. But we rocked the parking lot, kind of made this a nice little access area. So if you're up in the northwest part of the state, the far west part of our district up by Harrison, check this one out. It's kind of a little gem in the sand up in our district. And with that, I'm going to kind of turn it over to Zach, talk a little bit about some of our research going on. Just a reminder, if you have any questions that come up as we're working on going through this presentation, just continue to use that chat feature to type in your questions, and we'll start addressing them here at the end.
All right. Thanks everybody for attending tonight. My name is Zach Brashears. I'm stationed here in Valentine. I want to give you a little update on one of our projects we've been doing for the last few years, and then go into some of our sampling things we've done over the last few years. The first project I was going to talk about is our muskie project. We started this project in 2020. Due to COVID, we didn't really get it ramped up till 2021. But it's a project on Merritt Reservoir and Cottonwood-Steverson Lakes. Merritt Reservoir has a 50-inch minimum on muskies, and Cottonwood-Steverson is our statewide minimum of 40 inches. So we wanted to look at these two populations and just determine things like what the age structure is of these current populations, what lengths these fish can achieve, and if they can reproduce in these environments. To start off, just over the last 3, 4, or 5 years, right now in Cottonwood-Steverson, we'll start with, we've tagged about 153 adult muskies. And then our stockings we've been putting in 2022 and 2024. We've also been tagging those fish with a small pit tag, about the half the size of a pencil head. We can put those tags in these fish, and we can determine which fish they are and stuff. But you can see we've tagged 153 in Cottonwood-Steverson, stocked around 1,400. And then in Merritt, we've tagged about 145 adults and stocked about 1,570 fish in that lake. So we really want to look at these smaller fish, hopefully here in the future. What was interesting this year, we've actually got out in the last 2 weeks. We needed a muskie to produce some tiger muskies with our pike populations. So we were able to collect 2 of these fish in Merritt 2 weeks ago. These fish were hatched by our hatchery guys in 2021, raised throughout the year, and stocked in 2022. Part of this stocking was in the spring of 2022. They were about 12 inches in length. And when we caught them 2 weeks ago, they were about 788 millimeters, or about 31 inches. Some pretty phenomenal growth on these younger fish. So these fish are growing into their 5th growing season. So it'll be interesting how they continue into the population. As I was saying about the pit tags, they're a small little tag we inject into the body, and we're able to keep track of when we catch these fish, what year we caught them, what length they were, what weight they were, the sex of the fish, whether it's male or female, whether it's a recapture or not. And then this pit tag number is the unique identifying number of these fish. So we're able to keep track of each fish, when we caught them, where we caught them, kind of. It has notes over here on the side. We can keep track of where we caught them, how many eggs they gave us for the hatchery stuff. And then we've also been working with the UNK staff out of Kearney, and our research division, Keith Copel and Alex Engel, on aging these fish, so we can keep track of the ages of these fish. So kind of some cool stuff we can keep track of over the years. And then with the research staff and some help with Joe Spooner and the UNK staff, we're able to make some pretty amazing graphs. You can see Cottonwood-Steverson here on the left. We have fish in that muskies in that lake up to 19 years old. Pretty phenomenal fish live that long. You can see our males in more of the teal color, and our females are more in the peach or the orange color. You can see our Cottonwood Steverson males are topping out at around that 40-inch mark, that 1,000 or a little bit over millimeters, and our females are topping out at about that 46, 47-inch. Merritt Reservoir is a little bit younger. We have fish in there up to about 12 years old, and our males right now are topping out around that 36, 37 inches, and our females are still around that 44, 45 inches. We have caught a few females in Merritt up in here, that 47, 48-inch range. We do hear of fish every year from Merritt exceeding that 50-inch mark. We just have not sampled one so far yet. So we'll continue to look at these populations in the future and help determine which way to go with these regulations on these lakes. When you look at body conditions of these fish, kind of interesting. We have Merritt in the teal color and Cottonwood Steverson in the orange color. And you see our Cottonwood Steverson fish are just not doing quite as well. And that's probably more of a prey-based factor in that lake. Merritt has alewife and bluegill and perch and lots of other things to eat on. Our Cottonwood Steverson fish, more of a carp population. We did stock gizzard shad in there a few years ago to try to boost our walleye numbers, and they're also helping our muskie population there. So we'll continue to look at our gizzard shad numbers there, try to boost these numbers up, try to get them more in line with our Merritt fish on body conditions. This is this graph. Joe Spooner's helped me put a lot of stuff together with this database. If you look, we were talking about our adult fish tagged in both these lakes. If you look at Cottonwood Steverson, we've caught 132 fish one time, 20 of those fish two times, and 3 of those fish one times over 4 years. And we haven't caught any of those fish more or 4 times. Merritt, same thing, 108 fish one time, 29 two times, 7 of those fish 3 times, and we've caught 1 of those fish all 4 years. So we can use a lot of that data, start putting in some programs. Whoop. Sorry about that. What did I do? All right, you start putting a lot of that data into some databases, and we can come up with some population estimates on these lakes. You can see Cottonwood Steverson here on the top right. It's approximately 680 acres, surface acres. We're doing a lot of those surveys with an electrofishing boat, so we're surveying the whole entire lake, catching these muskies. So for this population estimate of about 477 fish, that's for the entire Cottonwood Steverson Lake. Merritt Reservoir, we're sampling these fish mainly during the walleye spawn. And I'd like to thank a lot of our walleye spawn crew guys here. We're busy collecting walleye and tagging muskies and stuff. So a lot of our biologists help out with that. But we're looking at about 257 muskies in Merritt. But this is mainly just around the dam area. From the dam area to, say, Willow Cove Breakwater, that's the only places we're sampling these muskies at this time. So there's a lot more muskies in Merritt than 257, but this is just around the dam area in the spring months, such as March and April. So now's the time to get out there and target a muskie at Merritt. Now I just want to talk a little bit about our fishery surveys. We conduct these every year, try to give our anglers a better ideas of where to go, what species to fish for, what lakes to target. And you can find a lot of these either at our district offices, like Rebecca Munner said earlier, or on our website at outdoornebraska.gov. Daryl Bauer puts this stuff together for us. We're out sampling these lakes every year. We try to get to as many lakes as possible, try to determine the populations and try to lead our anglers in the right direction. We don't get to every lake every year, but we try to get to as many as possible. And for the Northwest District, our best walleye lakes, probably be Merritt Reservoir and Lake Winters Creek, Sawguy, Whitney Lake and Big Alkali, Bluegill, Box Butte and Fry Lake, Yellow Perch, Crescent Lake, Box Butte, and Willow Lake Wildlife Management Area. And I will add Watts Lake to that. We will talk about that here in just a little bit. Black Crappie, Blue Lake. I'm going to add Pelican Lake, Clear Lake, and Dewey Lake on the refuge. Largemouth bass, Avocet, Rice, and Fry. Smallmouth bass, Lake Minnetonka, Muskie, we just talked about that. Merritt and Cottonwood Stevenson. And Northern Pike, Smith Lake, Box Butte Reservoir. And I'm going to talk about the Valentine Refuge here shortly. So we've got a lot of questions since the 2022-2023 winter kill. We've been stocking a lot of these lakes. We've been out there sampling these lakes, trying to get these populations built back up, trying to provide for our anglers. It was hit and miss. Which lakes winter killed bad? Some had partial winter kill. We're still probably assessing the situation on a lot of these lakes. Still stocking fish, trying to provide what our anglers want. A lot of our smaller vegetated lakes like Watts Lake, Rice Lake, Duck Lake, West Long, they had some pretty severe winter kill, but some of our lakes made it through, and we do see some bigger species in some of the lakes. So it was kind of nice this year. The ice came off in early March, so we were able to get out and start sampling some of these populations across the refuge. We've been at it about 2 weeks, and right now we're looking at some of our pike populations across the refuge. Kind of amazing. Our highest pike population right now is in West Long. We sampled about 34 pike per net. Not sure where these fish came from. Anglers are reminded it is illegal to move fish. We do see pike in West Long from year to year, but not in these numbers. So anglers are encouraged, if you want to go out and target some pike right now, West Long has a pretty dang good population with quite a few fish in that 28 to 34 inch range. This picture of this fish was just taken last week. Hackberry's coming on strong. We sampled 33 fish per net in it. A lot of those fish were smaller fish, year-old fish, less than 21 inches, but it should provide in the future. And Dewey also had a pretty good pike population with 18 fish per net and some few fish in that 33 to 34 inch size range. I should remind anglers, I'm going to call it the big four: Hackberry, Dewey, Pelican, and Clear. We do have a new regulation instituted this year with a protected slot limit of 24 to 34 inches. So if you're wanting to harvest any size pike, I would suggest going to Watts or West Long pike in both those lakes. Also, it's kind of amazing. When this water starts warming up, sometimes our panfish populations really start moving shallow. We were able to actually look at some of these populations as well when we're doing this. Pretty interesting. Pelican Lake, it was renovated in 2018. Right now we're sitting at 160 crappie per trap net. Pretty amazing catch. Pretty good size structure, less than 8 inches. And then we even had some fish over 12 inches. So anybody wanting to target black crappie should hit Pelican or even Clear, looking at about 84 crappie per trap net. And then Dewey was not bad, almost 40 per trap net. And then we had quite a few fish in this yellow category. That's fish over 12 inches, and that's those fish in that 14 to 15 inch size range shown over here in the picture. So our perch populations, they really fluctuate over times. Watts Lake was our best. It looks really, really, really good right now. We're sampling like 280 perch per net in there, and approximately a third of those fish are in the 8 to 10 inch range. By fall, by this winter, we ought to have a lot of fish in that 10, 11 inch range. We did see a few in that 10 to 12 inch range. And so Watts was looking really good. When you take Watts out of the graph, our other populations are not looking that bad. I mean, in the 10 to 25 fish range. So we're having some perch populations building on these lakes. You can see these little yellow bars at Dewey and Hackberry. This fish was actually out of Hackberry, a little over 12 inches. I think it was a pound and a third. So we are seeing some of these fish that did make it through the winter kill of 2022, 2023, but just not a lot of them. So we'll continue to stock these populations and try to build these perch populations for our anglers. Here's just a list of what we stocked in 2024. You can see at the bottom, about 3 million in 2024 and about 2 million in 2025. We stocked 18 different species across Northwest Nebraska, but that 2 million to 3 million, it's mainly made up of these perch eggs. We did not, our hatchery staff has really kudos to them. They really stepped up and we're not stocking as many perch eggs. We put these into some fingerling fish. So hopefully provide some better opportunities for our anglers in the future. And with that, I'll leave our info up and leave it open to questions.
All right, thank you guys. So we got a few questions coming in, and I would encourage everybody here in attendance tonight to use that Q&A box to type your questions out for the guys. Zach, we'll stick with you here to start off. We got a couple of questions about gaming access on the Valentine Refuge. Can you give a brief update on where we're at with that? And Joe, if you want to chime in as well with anything else, but I know that Zach, that's kind of your realm up there.
Sure. Yeah, we had a petition opened up this fall by a local angler wanting to open up more opportunities on the Valentine Refuge, especially since the winter kill and stuff of 2022, 2023. Trying to allow more access there. We were planning on meeting with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service staff on March 7th. Due to a snowstorm, we had to cancel that. Our plan is to meet with the Fish and Wildlife Service staff on April 22nd. From an agency standpoint, fisheries in the Nebraska Game and Parks, we are all about opening up more water bodies and more opportunities for our anglers. So that's where we're going to come from our standpoint. Granted, it's federal ground, so it's kind of up in the air as of now, but feel free to call me after April 22nd and I will give any updates that I can.
All right, thanks, Zach. Joe, you spent some time talking about angler access and some of the improvements around the district in that regard. Can you talk about well, a couple things, some of the target depths around some of those access points for those hard points like the riprap structures, and then some of the so the depths that you're trying to target for anglers, and then just some of the challenges that you kind of alluded to it, but some of the challenges associated with um, that and those target depths that you're trying to reach.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of shooting for at least a 10-foot depth around those structures, trying to get a good steep taper that we can deter some of the vegetation growth that comes up in these sandhill lakes. That deeper water may also help out, provide more habitat, less vegetation to might die back during a winter killish or hard winter that can cause a winter kill too. So, but typically about 10 foot is what we're trying for. These are sandhill lakes that we do get shifting sand. We will be looking at monitoring how long some of these excavations last in these areas.
All right, thank you. So a couple questions about Minutair. Uh, First is concerning walleye numbers and kind of back in the around 2020 taking a dive. Any thoughts or any update on how they're doing now? We'll start with that, and then I'll touch base with you.
Sure. Yeah, if you're looking for Blake Minutair, I just want to refer you to the web summary we put out. Kind of summarizes what's kind of going on with that water body. You can find that on our website under our sampling data. But just a little update on Lake Minutair. I thought last year, 2023 survey looked pretty good, looked promising, like we're starting to see a rebound. Our fishing last year kind of showed that too. Unfortunately, last fall's gillnet survey was down again. Um, just still struggling to get a year class off. Not really sure what's causing that. We're curious, maybe it might be the size of the fish, but the size of the fish is the exact same fish going into Winters Creek right across the road at the same time. That one's pretty consistent. So we're still working on looking into what's going on with our year classes there. But it looks like it might still be in that down walleye abundance. Another option might be that we're just not seeing them in our gill nets either, and our population could be better than what we're really seeing. I did hear reports recently that last year we had really good catch rates at 13 to 14 inch size, which should be harvestable size fish this year. So English should see some opportunity out there.
Okay, thanks, Joe. And then sticking with Minutair, we talked a little bit about it last night with the aquatic habitat plan and it being mentioned in the third rendition of that plan. Can you just briefly touch on what you have in mind with that project when it comes up?
Sure. So we did spend some time in Minutair last year with a few survey boats out there trying to map the lake, trying to identify what we have for available habitat with the way that lake operates. It's kind of a unique operation for a reservoir in Nebraska. There's only a couple of them that operate this way, where we spend the majority of our year at low water elevations. We get a flush of water that fills it, and then kind of a quick drawback down with irrigation, and not a lot of in lake habitat. So we're trying to map this lake to identify where we have habitat, use that to plan out where to try to do some in lake habitat improvements in the future with this aquatic habitat program. We're also going to be looking at the boat ramps there. Um, you know, with low water being the majority of the year, access can be tough, especially during drought years. The only operable ramp at that time is our rock ramp, which is real flat. It can be challenging to launch. So we try to look at some improvements as far as that goes too.
All right, thank you. You also talked to Joe about the fair and the boating access project that was going on there. Can you talk about the fishery a little bit and how it made it through the winter kill here a few years ago?
Sure. So we tried to get out and do a flash sample on as many water bodies as we could following the winter kill. We've gotten to the fair one time. Water levels last year were pretty challenging that we couldn't really get a boat into um, with being drought like it was. Uh, we did try to do a frame net survey late in the year, but we were kind of past our prime time to really sample the species in there. Um, but we did get some survival on yellow perch. It was pretty minimal. I think we had the majority of our species did die. We haven't found a largemouth bass in there after winter kill, but we did restock bass, bluegill, and yellow perch in the lake. Um, we're kind of in a challenging time period right now with water levels, so it may take a little bit longer for that lake to bounce back.
Thank you. Um, Zach, talking about Hudson Lake, is an OFW contract that didn't renew for ice fishing only, I believe. Can you comment on the status of that and any possibility of getting that possibly renewed?
Sure. I guess the issue was with Hudson Lake was a new landowner, I believe out of New Mexico that bought that property. We are still working on trying to open that back up to ice fishing. It's just a work in progress at this time, I guess. The ranch manager of that lake, I know him very well. He worked with the guy that previously got previous, so I'm hoping to open that lake back up in the future.
Thanks, Zach. Kind of sticking with you in the muskie and big fish. So you spent some time talking about the research project, um, and also the growth rates and how big those fish can get, and also kind of important. A lot of anglers like to release those fish. Can you just spend a little bit of time about how to properly handle those fish to give those fish the best chance to be released?
Sure. A lot of our anglers are targeting those fish right now along the soil cement on the dam at Merritt. Um, I guess have big tackle to be able to handle them and a big landing net. You have to try to keep them in the water, try to keep them healthy as much as possible, remove your treble hooks and release them back to the lake. Of course, get a few pictures, but try not to just drag them up on the rocks and the shoreline and try to handle them as good as you can. So a big net is what you need.
Thank you. One more for you, Zach, here. Willow Lake and Yellowthroat over in Brown County. I know you just inherited those. Uh, any update on the fishing over in Brown County and your new territory?
Okay. I guess we just took over that county in July of last year. So we didn't do a lot of our spring and summer sampling of those lakes, but we did do some fall gill netting, especially on Willow Lake. Our saugeye population in there looked really good. We did catch some nicer perch too, up to 12 inches. Um, I believe Willow Lake was one of our top saugeye fisheries in the state, besides maybe Big Alkali. So definitely be where to go. I actually just set nets in Clear Lake this morning, so I'm hoping to know more about those fish populations over the next week. So anybody that has questions on them, feel free to call. We're trying to sample as many lakes as we can right now, trying to get stuff done before the walleye spawn, trying to look at our perch populations, and then we'll look at our bluegill and crappie populations here later in later April or May.
All right. I'll let you guys both kind of hit on this. So, what about largemouth bass in kind of both parts of your district? Any updates on what you guys got going on? Kind of your top picks for largemouth bass populations.
I can start with that for our side of the district. Bass are one of those species that got hit really hard with winter kill. It didn't necessarily eliminate bass in all of our lakes, but the ones that were hit the hardest, like Smith Lake, some of our Crescent Lake refuge uh, lakes down there. Island Lake was hit really hard. It was a popular one. Those ones, they're going to take a few years to bounce back. Fry Lake had a reduction in bass abundance with it, but they did pull through. It's going to be probably one of the better ones. We did have a special regulation that we changed on it this year, trying to encourage more harvest of the smaller bass in there. There's no minimum size limit anymore, and just a 1 over 18 inches under your daily bag limit. Uh, Avocet is pretty low water right now. It's definitely struggling a little bit, but it should have some pretty good bass in there. And would be one of my top picks.
And the best three bass lakes I can think of right out of the top of my head right now, here on the refuge that did not get winter kill or around the refuge. Like Joe said, the winter kill was pretty tough on these bass populations. We are seeing bass sampled right now up to about 12 to 14 inches. So they're bouncing back pretty good. But top three picks would be Rice Lake, which did not have much for winter kill due to the depth of that lake. It's a walk-in type access, float boat or waders. Rat and Beaver has a very good bass population in it. And then Dewey Lake on the refuge has a decent bass population with some nicer fish. Abundance is not that high, but it does have some bigger fish in that 4 to 6 pound range.
All right, thanks, guys. With so out at Fort Robb, with Carter P. Johnson kind of going off the radar, where's a good place to go take your family fishing?
Um, with our aquatic habitat project out there, we did a lot of improvements for angler access. So quite a few of those ponds are already bouncing back. The Grable ponds are probably our best bet. You know, we stock those regularly with trout, so they're up and running right away. Where some of the other fisheries kind of take a little bit to get up and going. If you're looking more into bass or bluegill or crappies, um, the ice house ponds weren't completely renovated with it. We were able to save the middle ice house pond fishery in the lower one, so we have a little bit more advanced fish in that one. So if you're looking for that type of species, I'd be looking at the ice house ponds.
All right. And then uh, the wood reserve ponds on the aquatic habitat map. What are the plans that you have or ideas that you have for the wood reserve ponds?
Sure. We had a flood come through, the same flood that came through that filled in Carter P. Johnson, did hit that drainage. And the upper pond, pond one, first one of the series, did get filled in quite a bit with some silt. It's still functioning, but it's really just to excavate some of that silt out of there and deepen them up. Might help a little bit with the vegetation in there. But they're still in good shape right now, but it'd just be cleaning those out.
Okay. Any so you guys just put some special panfish regs out there in a few sandhill lakes. Any other special panfish regulations on the or not just limited to I'll open it up, not just limited to panfish, but some other species on the horizon that you're wanting to try out?
Well, we're kind of looking at evaluating some of those regulations for a little bit before we jump into anything else. We're trying to offer some lakes with more harvest opportunity, but still looking at some produce some of those more trophy quality fisheries with these restricted panfish regs. So before we start adding much more in the horizon, we're going to look at evaluating these ones and see how they're working. Zach, you can kind of chime in if you have any other comments on that too.
No, I agree fully, Joe. Think we need to look at these populations, what they're doing. Kind of like our muskie stuff we're looking at between Merritt and Cottonwood Stevenson, just from a harvest oriented standpoint versus a trophy standpoint. Try to look at those populations. Not saying we aren't, not saying we are, but definitely look at it and possibly include more in the future if we think warranted.
Very good. Are either of you guys familiar with the Onyx Fish app and any input or thoughts on that?
I'm not real familiar with it. I know I've heard it's out there, utilizing fisheries data in their app to kind of point you in the right direction, but not real familiar with it. Haven't used it myself.
Same here.
Um, I'm not familiar with it either. We'll have to we'll have to get back to you on that, Don. Update on the Crescent Refuge.
Sure. You know, Crescent Refuge Island was actually probably the worst winter kill that we documented. It was pretty much the only complete winter kill out of all the lakes we surveyed that we didn't find a fish back in it, which sounds bad, but we've also not found a carp since the winter kill. Um, we've restocked it. I'm actually setting nets in there tomorrow at Island Lake and in South Smith. Try to get a better look at those two fisheries and see how they're responding. Haven't had a lot of chance to get into Crane Lake um, with low water levels the last couple of years to see how that's responded. We know we didn't have a winter kill in there, but haven't had a chance to look at it last year. Um, Crescent Lake itself isn't part of the refuge, but it's right in there with it, and it's actually looking really good. It had a really good walleye catch last year. We saw quite a few perch in that 10 to 12 inch range. We've stocked it with gizzard shad, trying to manage around the common carp, and body condition of the predator fish are looking really good. It'd be one that'd be on my target for the year for checking out Sandhill Lakes. Blue Lake in that area. The panfish are struggling a little bit more in that lake than they are Crescent. We're looking at introducing those gizzard shad into blue this year, trying to get managed around the carp in that lake. But it does have some good walleye numbers in it, and quite a few crappies in there. It's probably one of our better spots to go look for crappies in that 10 to 12 inch range.
So right now I got one more question here in the chat. So if anybody else has questions, get typing. Beaver dams on Soldier Creek. Any plans to remove some or all of them out there?
Well, the fort's having some problems with access in a couple areas. No, with the beaver dams flooding the roads up. I was approached by Fort Robinson recently, letting me know that they're going to be doing some removal in some dams in the area. But we don't have any other plans right now to do any removals on the existing dams throughout the drainage.
That it worked. I got one more question here. Any wiper stockings involved with the shad stockings you guys do out there?
Yeah, we've been stocking wipers into Cottonwood Steverson. I think we're on year 4 this year. We have seen some up in that 12-inch range already with fall survey. And we did include wipers back into the stockings in the Lake Minnetonka. So we do have wipers back in Northwest District.
All right. With that, so Joe and Zach's contact information are listed on here. They're both avid anglers as well. They love to hear from everybody. If you guys got further questions, please reach out to them and chat with them about anything. One last question here, a quick review of Shell Lake.
Sure, I can answer that one. Shell Lake was actually one that I was surprised we didn't have a lot of winter kill on, and we found all species, kind of all sizes, following with a quick sample, a quick survey out there following the winter kill. Last year, open water was a great year for big bluegills. I heard reports of a lot of 8 to 9 inch bluegills caught out of there. Haven't heard much yet this spring with the ice coming off. But the fishery seems to be doing pretty well. Probably one of our better sandhill lakes to target while some of these other ones recover. One added thing for Shell Lake too, we do have a brand new boat dock that's going to be going in this spring for up there to replace the one that was there. So look for that improvement coming up.
Very good, guys. With that, I'm going to leave it with you guys for any closing remarks, and thanks everybody for their participation this evening.
I just got 2 more things I want to talk about. I discussed rat and beaver a little bit earlier. We are currently looking at signing the access point back up for 20 more years. Hopefully that'll be signed in the future. That is mainly just the east access on Rat Lake, not the west access on Beaver. That's a new landowner. So anybody wanting to go to Rat and Beaver, try to use the east access. And then the Powderhorn ramp at Merritt. We had a meeting on that yesterday. That's looking to be closed until this fall, when we can hopefully get that ramp fixed and get it going again when the lake gets drawn down. So thank you everybody for attending. Appreciate the questions, and give us a call anytime you want to come out fishing. We'll lead you in the right direction.
Yeah, I'll echo Zach on that. This is our contact information here. Drop us an email, give us a phone call. We're happy to visit with you. We'll tell you what's going on, the good, the bad, the ugly, try to get you pointed in the right direction. So thanks everybody again for tuning in tonight. Just a reminder that these presentations this week will be recorded and put on our YouTube page. So, if anybody that missed out tonight, let them know, pass the word. any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us.